It jumped off.
Did it really?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me, man.
What are you going to do today? Are you going to do the same thing today you did yesterday and expect a different result? Change what you think, change what you do, and tomorrow will be different from today. You know why it's so simple for me? Because I have a lot of experience. You can only change your tomorrows by changing yourself today. Ready? Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. The Power is Within podcast. We're glad you could join us today. And we have special guest, RP Thor, the epitome of masculinity. Let's bring him on. Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, you sound good, man. How's it going?
That's fantastic. Here, I got a little intro for you. Here you go.
Okay.
The most masculine man on the fucking planet that I've ever seen. Red Pill Thor.
Yep.
Hear that? That was King Dre when I introduced me on his show.
Oh, yeah, I thought I recognized that voice. I listen to
There
him
you
quite a
go.
bit. I like his stuff.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. My level's okay with you guys?
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah.
Excellent.
We got everything. So we're going to discuss masculinity. Well, we have Henry here. He's the co-host. Brado, he's a neighbor, friend of the kid,
Adopted.
the boys. Yeah, he's adopted.
Yeah, he's an adopted son.
So he's just overall. And then Frank's on the camera, the tech man over there. If you can see him or not.
Yeah.
He's taking care of that stuff. So anyway, we're glad to have you here. We're going to talk about masculinity tonight. I think I posted this. Is it a lost trait in the U.S.? What is the deal here in the U.S.? We seem to be lacking on masculinity. What is your opinion or view on why is that happening?
Masculinity is an important component of the male of the species, particularly us humans. Masculinity defines us as men, and if you can't define a man or a woman, you will have real trouble defining masculinity and femininity. But what it essentially is it's the polarity between the two sexes, and that's where the power really comes from. It's the yin and yang, so to speak. It's the polar opposite of femininity. It's neither good nor is it bad. Now, in recent times, it's been lauded as toxic because of its traditional nature as it's passed from father to son. There is a component that's learned, but there are many components that are not learned. They're innate, and they're innate within us because of our hormonal balance, how nature has created us with the X and the Y chromosome and not the X and the X. Can components of masculinity be learned? Absolutely. And I think the reason it's under such suppression is that, at least in my opinion, for the last 35 years, masculinity has been taught to women that are competing in the corporate environment.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite necessary. So it's been cultivated through modern feminism. Believe it or not, that's a quite masculine movement. It's Marxist based. There's reasons for it to be that way. It's regressive. I'm just stating the facts. I'm not going one way or the other, but it's been quite effective in letting American women and Western women understand that in order to survive, they need to be independent and strong in such a way as it really mimics male masculinity.
Right.
Because of that, it really weakens the society as a whole, because we end up with an imbalanced polarity between the feminine and the masculine. So is it dying? No, it's actually on the rise, Mark.
Oh, really?
It's on the rise with our females. They're becoming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Thor. It's like whenever I shake a woman's hand, and I know they're taught to do this, but they shake my hand like a man. It's like I want to squeeze their knuckles and say, "You're not a man, and I'm not a woman. I'm never going to have a baby." But I understand they're taught that, as opposed to when I was young, they were taught home ec and more how to be a wife, a housewife. And there's nothing wrong with a woman in the work field. I have no problem with that. But they really, and you can tell me what you think about this, they really don't have the emotional or the physical strength to do the jobs that the men do. I mean, I think you do lineman work, don't you? You
I
climb
do.
the towers. Now, there's a good example. I mean, how many women are linemen?
Well, in my profession that I came up in, less than 1%, less than
So
half
there,
a percent.
so there you go. We have this illusion. This is just my opinion. In the U.S., that a woman doesn't need a man. Well, she doesn't need a man directly, like in many other third world countries. But what she doesn't realize is that men have created infrastructures and systems to create the illusion that they don't need a man. Because if men didn't keep all this going, things would fall apart. Then they would really directly need a man. What's
Yeah.
your view on that?
Uh, yeah, they are taught that they don't directly need a man, but the weight of the universe is a heavy thing, Mark.
Yeah,
And the universe had plans for them and had plans for our species. It takes two to tango. They make miniature humans. We don't.
yeah, exactly.
Although us as men, we are the secret sauce, so to speak,
Yeah,
when it comes
yeah,
to making little humans. But
right.
let's take a look at what Merriam-Webster says about masculine just for a moment so we know what we're talking about. The definition one of masculine, entry 2 of 2 in Merriam-Webster's, is the masculine gender. Well, what
Yeah,
would that be? It's rather contradictory with some of the, woke stuff out there. And then number 2 is a noun pronoun, adjective, or inflectional form of class of masculine gender, that would kind of be, the traits that can be learned, right?
yeah,
First one was what's innate, what's inborn of the gender. It is a male person. The third is a male person. So that's the definition in the dictionary.
yeah,
So by definition, the majority of masculine is male, male
right.
behavior, male traits. And lo and behold, part of masculinity has been viewed as quite aggressive. When women become masculine, they really look at that aggressive competition side, not the side that stands, stoic and strong and firm. They really talk that down because they don't really understand the strength in it, in my opinion. But
Do you find that some of the radical feminists are more aggressive than, or do you consider them to be somewhat aggressive? They seem to be to me, the ones that they almost like it seems to me that they downplay or talk bad about men and masculinity and toxic masculinity, but you'll see them with short hair, they'll be wearing suits that they want almost want to become or dress or appear as a man, the very thing that they downplay or degrade.
yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for that because in modern feminism, nobody gets paid unless there's a bad guy, and the bad guy
Yeah,
happens to be the men.
yeah,
So that's what's broadcast out there, and it's got a lot of attention. And they always draw attention to the same things: the tiny, tiny percentage of men that are controlling in a relationship.
right, right.
They throw a freaking over those men that are controlling a relationship, and they act like it's the entire population. Well, I'll tell you this about men that are controlling a relationship. Here's the secret: they're not in control.
Correct.
So, with what they're complaining about is a very small percentage of men, and men that do control a relationship generally are not. I hate using the terms alpha and beta, but it's good in this context. They're not at the top of the food chain. They're not the
Right.
type that self validates. The guys that are controlling are the ones that externally validate. They have to control somebody else to feel good about themselves or have external validation. They're kind of in the middle to the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to
Right.
masculinity. We have a
Yeah,
very
well,
good example of that right now in the news media, don't we? With the
oh
wheel
yeah,
with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
he has all the money, he's had all the success, but where do you think he rates on that scale? No,
yeah, right,
not at the top, not even
right,
close. Middle to lower end, because what he exhibited was that part of masculinity, and it is where he allows that mate protection to go crazy in his head. Men kill each other over women, and
right. Yeah,
they
domestic calls for the police are the most dangerous.
They do, and it's insane because, the top men, how they handle their protection of their women is quite different, and when they're taking care of their resources, when they're the top men and someone's giving them, the offense, the other party just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Either
Well, I find,
they get concrete overshoes, or a war is started, or something happens that's not directly tied to that top man. So to
yeah,
speak. Maybe he
yeah.
lost his job. Maybe he got transferred. What did that King David do in the Bible when he was fancying the one guy's wife? He
Set him
promoted
off to get, yeah,
he
set him off
promoted
to get killed.
yeah, but he promoted him too. He promoted him in the army, so he was happy and
Right.
he had to go to the war.
Yeah. He sent him off to the front lines and he got killed. And then he took his wife, Bathsheba, I think it was.
Yes, but that guy was top of the class, man. He wasn't about to go there and slap the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
At least in legal terms, he kind of did it right.
Right. Well, I tell you, we talked about controlling. Some people want to say that a masculine man is a controller, but what I found out is he's not so much a controller as he wants to keep things in order. And women nowadays will tell a man he's trying to control them if he doesn't want the girl hanging around with guy friends, or he doesn't want her posting revealing pics on Instagram. But it's really not controlling at all. It's just being
Mhm.
keeping what to control him would be is if you were going with a girl and she wanted to go out and you took her keys or you took her phone from her. These are just rules or restrictions. We'll say it that way. That if you want to be my girlfriend, you want to stay with me, this is what I want from you. They have a choice, so it's not controlling unless you're already in the relationship and you're stealing her phone, taking her money, locking them in the room. So there's a lot of difference. That word control has really been, I believe, misused.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And I'll just add this onto it. You know, if you've done your job right as a man and you're attractive enough, the control is not going to be an issue. If she knows you don't like her to post butt pics on Instagram, she won't do it.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
she's nervous about her social media and you're high enough value for her, she will delete her accounts
Yeah.
willfully, and she will gain a lot of pleasure, satisfaction, and fulfillment from it. Her girlfriends will freak out if they hear about it, but
Yeah.
if she's really into it, she'll conceal it. And if she doesn't, and that's a big concern to her, and she wants to keep doing those things, well, that's because she doesn't quite yet rate you as the top sexual pick in her mind, and she's
Yeah.
keeping her reserves open.
Well, who is it that says a woman will leave her family or country or school? And I've had women do all those things for me. And then I've also been on the other side where you're talking about now, where they didn't like me or respect me enough, or I wasn't leading correctly, or wasn't being strong enough. I was being too compliant. And women will try to get you to comply with them when they really don't want you to do that. They want to see, are you strong enough to put me in my place and keep me in my place? Now, a lot of women would disagree. No, I'm not like that. But in reality, they do. One of my ex-wives, I got a couple. She told me after we were separated, it was a year and a half. She had missed me, which she was back together with me. And I said, well, you don't have me. You said I was too controlling. She said, yeah, but you at least cared about me. See, and she realized and had a different view of that. She realized I wasn't being controlling. I was just trying to protect her. And she actually wanted that back when she went out there and found out that it's a little tough out there when you don't have a man that cares about you and say, hey, you better not do that because this, or that. So,
No, you touched on an amazing point. Women, even rabid feminist women will say they don't want a controlling man, but you know what they all fall back and want? A man that's in control.
yeah. And
And
the first thing is, and you know this, I've heard you speak, we have to be in control of ourselves before anything on the outside will even seem like it's close to being in control. But like you said, control is really an illusion. You didn't say illusion, but you led to that. And it is, but you cannot control anything that controls you. So you first have to get control within yourself. What's the old saying? He who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers the city. It's very true.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's an amazing thing the way men and women are interacting today. It's almost as if we've ignored nature and how nature has placed us in these roles. Roles are an important part of nature. You can look across the animal kingdom and you can see across the entire animal kingdom, the genders of the species has specific roles to play. In some cases, it's kind of different than ours, but not all cases. Most cases are very similar to us. The
Right.
females play a role and the males play a role. And what does the universe or nature do when we play our role? They reward us with fulfillment. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean contentment. I think the natural state of man is to be somewhat discontent. We're always fighting against that. And that's probably a good thing. Keeps us alive. But
Exactly.
you can achieve an amazing amount of fulfillment in like what I do and what you do, Mark. And that's when we pass our knowledge on to young people and they achieve some level of success in their own life from what we did. There's a sense of fulfillment that's
Yes.
I did my part as a male member of the tribe to give these young men a rite of passage and see them succeed with a piece of what I was able to pass forward. Now, with
Yeah.
a woman, it's the same thing, but it's with children and family.
Right.
A big part of her family is that man that's in control. Imagine being such an emotional creature, Mark, that up and down, you have up and downs every single day, every single month. And that's a good thing in the way that we evolved in that emotions are great for rapid decision making. But right now, you get that, and then you have a man that has developed this rational sense of thought that takes somewhat of a priority, sometimes or most times, over emotions versus a female, and
Right.
she's quite satisfied when she knows her male is the top of the food chain, can provide for her, and she's quite satisfied to now focus on her family, her offspring. It's an amazing thing to see. And you can see it with women that have been married for 30, 40, 50 years. They're quite fulfilled with their life, happy to be grandmothers, happy to
Yeah.
live.
Women are more into relationships. But they've been sold this bill of goods that they're going to find fulfillment in having a career. And how many of you heard, or the narrative is, okay, you go out and you go to college and you have your career, and then you got plenty of time to have children later. And the studies show that at 30 years old, 90% of their eggs are gone, and their risk for high risk pregnancy goes up. So
Mm,
this thing of you have plenty of time is not true at all, but yet they're sold that
yeah.
they have a certain amount of time, and I don't think a woman, I'm sure there are outliers, but most women do not find fulfillment in the same things you and I do, because as you said, we're different. Nature has made us different.
Mm,
We find fulfillment in achieving, conquering, and different things like that, and women find fulfillment in relationships and nurturing, which they're much better at that than you and I are, or at least me anyway.
yeah. Nature definitely made those roles for us to have for a purpose, and that's for our species survival. And it's been very effective for millennia for us mammals. But there's always going to be outliers. That's how mutations form, right? So
Yeah.
you can see some of that happening now with the adoption of masculine traits in order to compete in this corporate world, this corporate slave world that honors that sacrifice of living in the cube and sacrificing for
Right.
company. And we've sold them that they can have it all. Unfortunately, they can't have it all. If you wait too long, you won't have those children. Now,
Right.
I've known personally and have seen women that have had their children become teenagers. They complete college and start a career after that and remain married and are quite fulfilled as well. Uh,
Yeah.
that seems to be rare, but when I was a young man, those were the women that I saw leading in corporate culture, not the other way around. The ones that came,
Yeah.
very young and climbed that ladder. It was kind of the older women that had come back into the workforce middle age, and they had quite a bit of life experience and social experience when they came into the workforce
Yeah.
at middle
Yeah.
age,
Wisdom. Yeah. A wisdom that the younger women don't have. Yeah.
and they were very successful. The ones that I can think of, very successful. So it's possible. It's just in a different order than's been preached to the popular culture today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
so Hank,
Amazing. Go ahead.
so Henry, what do you think of all this, man and woman stuff, huh?
Well, I had a little bit of a topic in mind. I was thinking about the main topic is masculinity, and I was thinking about last night. Me and my buddy were wrestling we were wrestling, going at it.
Yeah, there was wrestling. Yeah.
We-
I'm trying to sleep.
That's the thing. We took it outside though, and we were wrestling on the grass and stuff, and he got the best of me, but I didn't get emotional about it. But one of the things that you don't see women do is, and no offense to women, they have their own traits. You don't see them going out and wrestling each other.
Yeah, because they're different. They
Have their own perspective and mindset and everything like that. But me and my buddy went out there, we wrestled. He got the best of me. But I was thinking too, it's like if we lived in a tribe or something like that, he would challenge me and he would have beat me and he would have been the top man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that guys do. It's like they challenge each other to see who's going to be the toughest. That's just a masculine trait.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit. Now, what you weren't doing, it wasn't bullying, but this thing about bullying, I believe, is just a pecking order. I was bullied, I bullied, and actually, I'm glad I was because it made me stronger. It made me want to fight, want to learn how to fight, how to stand up for myself. Because after I got humiliated enough times, I thought to myself, it can't be worse getting the hell beat out of me than feeling like a piece of crap for 2 or 3 weeks. But now they make. I'm not saying bullying is good, but everything's got a good and bad in it. But for me, it really it helped me to become a stronger person and build my character. Without resistance in life, whether it come from bullying or rejection or whatever, we can't grow in characters. I compare that to the same as lifting weights in the gym. The more resistance, the stronger you get. The more resistance you have, it builds up the inner man, the masculine man. And now it seems like we have so many people that want to, or at least want to run away from the character building, the resistance that you need by taking a pill or going to a safe place. It's like nobody takes risk. I don't see kids climbing trees. You got to wear helmets. You got to wear shin guards. I mean, that's all good. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but a man has to risk. We are so safe as a society that people have to do bungee jumping, parachuting, all these things because we have this innate desire for adventure and risk. And it's kind of been taken out of our society by it's for your own good. I mean, like the seatbelt and different. I wear my seatbelt, but you understand the point I'm making.
Well, I mean, if you're going to, that's the thing too. It's like fortunately for me, I've had a father that's been a good role model for me, and he teaches me everything that I've known. And because
I paid him to say that.
He's paying me to say it, but no, but everything he teaches me makes me want to be more of a man. So anytime I can wrestle somebody, arm wrestle, or anything like that, I get a chance to, fight with somebody. Not actually fight, but as a friendly fight or just having a good time. I lost my topic. What I was gonna say, but because of him, I've been more masculine. Otherwise, if I had, and no offense to the women out there, if I had just a mom, she probably wouldn't have taught me the same thing that you taught me.
Yeah.
Did you learn to wrestle from your father?
I didn't learn to wrestle. I learned to scrap and fight and everything like that.
Last time we wrestled, we were in a deadlock, and I don't know which one of us said, but I was wanting to stop, but I had too much pride, so we both quit. I don't know because I couldn't get out.
You guys point out my point earlier is the universe having roles for us. Mock warfare is extremely important to masculinity, and you can make the argument that it's actually inbuilt into the male, and I'll tell you why. If you watch all the animals, watch the males compete with each other and pretend to battle. We were bred and we are designed by nature for war, for battle.
Exactly.
That's us. We are built to battle and we are disposable too. We pass our seed, and if we get killed, c'est la vie. The next one stands up.
Yeah.
This is survival for our species. And for us, we play mock war. We understand how each other think, how we strategize, and this has aided us in survival and has molded our evolution. Women, on the other hand, very communitarian creatures, interested in things, children, and they want their children, they want life to be fair for them. And it's gone rampant, and they've convinced
No losers. Everybody's a winner.
That is actually the basis for Marxism. Mm-hmm. And you can see now, even in just what's happened, like I said, last weekend at the Oscars, words are now weapons, and words are violence in many modern feminist terms. A word is the same as a punch or a slap or a sword.
Yeah.
We've had people call for people to be tried for treason for nothing, just a word, not even a treasonous word, so to speak.
Yeah.
It requires action, not words.
Yeah.
So sedition, on the other hand, could be worse. But anyway, back to that topic. That's very Marxism and interesting. But you see that with modern feminism, and you could see the weakest of our men being manipulated to do violence over words. Just think. I mean, we've all experienced it where, we're in a social environment. There's women we might be interested in, and we got a drunk buddy or whatever, or this guy we know. And we're interested in this gal, and you start to pay attention to her. Now this guy's completely pissed off at you because she's now paying attention to you. right?
Yeah.
Those are those guys that initiate the slap or the stab because, by God, you should have known that was my girl. I claimed her. I lifted my leg on her. Didn't you know that?
Yeah.
Didn't you see that?
Yeah.
That's
Guy?
happened to me. Yeah, I went to a party one night when I was younger, my late 20s, and it was a bunch of college guys, and I was about 28, and there were two girls there. They were all playing poker, and one of them I had been with, we were kind of dating, and the other one was a friend, and I went in there, and of course, she came and sat on my lap, and I was really drunk. It was back when I drank. And the guys across the table, I thought they were mouthing off of me, and sure they were, so I called them outside, and I ended up getting in a fight with not the guy I called out, but one of the other ones, and then somebody sucker punched me. It turned into a big mess. But yeah, because they wanted the girl, and then she was on to me, and it's like, and I've had it happen more than once where they get pissed off because that's just the way it is.
So, guys, in order to survive, you need to be aware of that because there is a percentage of those low quality men. When I say that, what they're doing is exercising the lowest common denominator of masculinity.
Yeah,
And they're trying to do mate guarding, and there's not even a mate to guard. Savvy women understand this, and they use words as weapon. They can manipulate those buffoons very easily to do violence in their name.
yeah,
And many times in today's society, it's just for their entertainment. You know why? It excites their emotions, and then
yeah.
what's to follow is a release of endorphins, importance, and that external validation that they feel. And there are too many people today that only can get external validation, don't know how to get self-validation like our ancestors did out on the plains or out on the seas, So,
Yeah, we need more sense of adventure, I think, like I was talking about earlier, because as men, and I think maybe a lot of younger men are trying or get their sense of adventure through games and video type stuff, and they don't really get, I think they get the same adrenaline rush, but it doesn't release. The body does. It needs to move physically and interact with this in a physical way. They don't. It's almost like they get. I've watched one of my sons who really gets into the games, and it's like he gets this pent up, explosive because he's sitting there playing for hours, and it just like he could just blow up at any minute.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you're out there playing football. I'm talking about my camera guy. As if he's out there playing football or skateboarding, which he's really good at that stuff. He's a natural athlete. He doesn't have, when he's done, he's more relieved. In contrast to the games, it's like you just want to, tear something up.
So I got a question for you, Thor. So what you were saying about the Oscars and Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, do you think it was masculine for him to slap Chris Rock like that, even though she cheated on him?
Not at all.
So what are your thoughts on what he did?
What he did was, he is, let me see if I can explain this. All right, let's use some terms that we all understand, alpha and beta, right? Let's take 100 guys, and let's say you've got 20% we might consider alpha, top-notch men, right? These guys, they can get the women, they get the jobs, they understand, they have a high level of social acuity, right? Now, if you think of those top 20%, about the top 3, they understand so much, but they have a little bit of psychopathy. Those guys are in jail. They're that high up there, right? Now on the lower end, you got the real slugs, the incels, and then you've got your average Joe. So in that group, you have a group of men that spans that group right up into the high level men, and even sometimes into high level men that have deep seated insecurities. They have a scarcity mindset, and they have a fear of weakness. And this guy's been railed through the media. He's allowed all this stuff to happen to him.
Yeah.
He's living in the shadow and never did he ever step up to the man plate with that woman. He's never stepped up to the man plate. So all he's relegated to do is to go in the corner and pick on the smallest mouse. That's it. Because she's put him in place. And that whole thing's contrived. Did you guys see the after video? Where he slapped her, and now the phone video is coming out. She was laughing and bobbing her head up and down when he was slapping her.
With Kevin Samuels.
And Will slapped her or no?
No. So whenever he slapped her, she was laughing at something else after. He was like, Will Smith just smacked me, and she started laughing.
Well, yeah, I seen the background. There's 2 different views. There was the front view, and then there's the back view of her laughing after
Will smacked.
Yeah, he goes, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me, and then she's laughing. She's like,
oh, okay.
I had just seen it. It was new to me.
You
So
can see she actually starts clapping.
yeah,
So it is contrived completely. Um, Here's the thing, that guy has an ocean of insecurities. He's played all these tough guys to try to fill that void, a weakness in himself. He's pretty pathetic, really. I mean, um, alpha, no, only in the context that he had to prove himself because he can only get external validation. So he has achieved acting success. He's a highly emotional man. And guess what highly emotional men can do? They can act really well because they have a lot of emotion. So he
dangerous.
did that. He's kind of organized. Great. Get some doors open for him. He has done this. He has reached the pinnacle of his level on the night of his life, and he's had no control because of his insecurities. None. He wants to be loved so much that he's convinced himself that he can never be good enough, and he's doing all these things. And then he sees one opportunity because she slighted. I can prove myself to her.
Yeah.
Guys like the guy is very much like a seventh grader going into junior high school. And it's very much like that guy that says, no, that was my girl. Didn't you know I wanted her? And he can never win because she's still with Tupac in her mind. She had her daughter writing letters to Tupac 20 years after his death.
Jeez.
Well, he's dead. It's crazy.
She's humiliating him, I think. I mean, I can understand how he got to where he's at because I've been where he's at, not now, but back. To me, the most masculine thing he could have done if he was going to hit somebody was to slap her at the red table and walk out on her and just divorce her. He wouldn't have had to slap her, but if he's going to hit somebody, but I've been where he's at, not so much a drug, but I walked away before it got to where he's at. But I can understand how he got there because you got a woman that starts humiliating and disrespecting you in public. If you stay, because a lot of psychologists and counselors will tell you, well, you just need to, when she gets like that, just tell her you love her, and then they just despise you even more. So I don't recommend listening to, I mean, I'm sure there's some good counselors out there and psychologists, but I haven't had good luck with them when it comes down to getting marriage counseling. Better to find a man that has a woman that cooperates with him and they have a good relationship to get your counseling from. Just my opinion. But yeah, I was starting to get going in the direction of him by listening to the counselors because the more I just allowed or the more I accepted her bad behavior, the more she despised me and the more she turned up the heat. So, but I had to walk away. Otherwise, I'd be like Will.
I'll give you a take on it. So Will, here's the thing. Jada, he could have fixed this entire thing. Let's just take the red table, for example. He knew what was coming. They were going to go on the red table. So, and I've advised men in similar circumstances, sometimes they can turn it around, but they have to be hardcore. So you show up to the red table with a younger, hotter, tighter chick and say, yeah, say your piece.
Yeah.
Okay. See, here's the thing. She can be fixed. It took her alpha to do it. And he died. So,
yeah.
She is a victim of her own mentality. I mean, when they say women need protection, they need protection from themselves too.
Exactly.
And Will has failed to step up to that plate. A pathetic excuse for a masculine man, really. And he's failed himself. And and we get to watch that all in public. Do I have sympathy? No, it's 100% his fault.
Yeah.
He's just lucky that Chris took it, if it's real.
Yeah.
I believe it was contrived on her part completely to try to also interfere with his night, since she has done everything she can to interfere with every modicum of success. She's tried to sabotage it, if you look far enough back, him emotionally every chance she gets, because I don't know what the reason is, but here it is, the night of his life he worked his whole life for, and she sabotaged it, essentially, because she knew she could do it because of his emotional up and downs.
Yeah, it's amazing.
100% his fault for allowing it to ever get into that condition. And he's lost his children's respect over it. That letter, they lost it a long time ago.
Do you remember Mike Tyson and Robin, is it Gibbons? Was that her name?
Yeah.
I remember seeing them, and she did something similar. They were on a talk show, and she was talking about how abusive Mike was. He was getting counseling. Basically, what she was doing was humiliating him in public, when that is something that should have been kept between them two and the counselor. But I think they brought him down because you just don't. You go doing that to your man, it's like to me, it's it's disrespectful. If you really loved your man, you wouldn't be doing that. But back to what you said too, and I look back on my relationships, I'll take the blame, so to speak, because I became complacent in my leading. They get to the point where they get because you start or I start becoming complacent, and you just, oh, okay, yeah, let's go there. I don't care, and you just can't do that. You have to remain the strong leader, and that's what they want, even when they're trying to get you to comply. Oh, stay home this weekend. Don't go out with your buddies. You can go out with them anytime. And you think, well, yeah, she'll probably appreciate me more if I stay home with her. But that's not the way it works. She wants you to continue on your purpose, doing what you were doing, and being the man that you were when she met you. But so many times guys get, and I've done it, they become complacent and relaxed, and they just let things go. And this is what happens if it goes far enough, like what happened with
See,
Will.
this is the super nice guy syndrome. I'm doing everything right according to
Yeah.
femininity or feminism. And here's the advice I'll give you guys. If you find yourself complacent and find this is a hard pill, man, but this works. You find yourself in this place right here, and you find yourself in public and she has humiliated you. The next time she finds yourself in public or somewhere, make sure that she at least has the sense or the awareness that her replacement is present and ready to take her spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I always had better luck when I knew that you walk out the door and I had a replacement. Like you can be replaced. I even told some, and a lot of women would think, God, that's mean as hell. That's crude. But when they know they can be replaced, they have more, and actually the relationship goes better. But when they know they can't be replaced, or the girl is your main focus, they don't want to be your main focus. Even though they may say, I want to be treated like a queen. I want to be treated like a prince. That just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's what a lot of young men are taught, and by TV and different things, they're taught that that's what they're supposed to be treating girls like, and that's about as far from masculinity as it can be, because you're seeking approval. But then again, in school, kids are taught to act like the girls, set in the rows, don't play too rough. I think you can't even run on the playground now, or something.
They won't even
You
let
can't play tag.
You can't play tag
You
dodge.
you can run. I mean, dodgeball, high school.
Can you still play dodgeball or not?
In high school, they like bend the rules a little bit. You can play dodgeball, but I haven't seen much of no running though.
And also in school, it's automatic. You get kicked out, and no, yeah, if you defend yourself. Like my son Henry, he was in school and his kid was picking on him, and he told the teacher, and the teacher told him to stop, and the kid kept doing it. And Henry said, "If you don't stop him, I'm going to." And the teacher wouldn't, so he punched the kid in the nose and bloodied his nose all over. And then Henry had to spend the night in juvenile jail. So it's like, and they tell my kids, because they told me, they said, well, we tell the kids if somebody's picking on them to cover up if they start hitting them and wait for help.
Oh, that's
It's like,
fantastic. I love what you guys did. I have a very similar story with my oldest son.
yeah, it's like, come on.
In the 1990s, I spent 7 years learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from Hoist Gracie and Rickson Gracie. And I taught my sons how to do rear naked chokes. He had a kid punch him in the face, and he choked the kid unconscious, and he was doing the chick. So he wanted to, but there was no physical damage, in the entire schoolyard saw this, but they weren't real aware of MMA at the time. So they didn't do anything, but guess what? He never got punched again.
Yeah.
And back to the bullying, that's really the only way I could ever stop a bully. You've got to stand up to him. You go and tell somebody, it just does not work. You have to stand up to him. But as I said, in school, at least around here, and I think in many places, they punish the kids for protecting themselves. But as a nation, don't we stand up for ourselves as a nation when someone attacks us? But yet we're trying to program our children to be compliant with all the laws and wait for the authorities to come. Sometimes they can't be here. I had a guy come into the house maybe a year ago, big guy, banging on the door. He was drinking, looking for some woman, the mother of a friend of my son's. I was on the top of the steps. I told him to leave twice up there, came down, told him to leave. He wouldn't leave. So it was a danger. I didn't punch the guy because he'd been drinking, but I did have to physically get him to leave because you can't. He was a threat to my family. But in reality, that would be called assault. Fortunately, this guy had just got out of jail for drinking, so I guess he didn't go to the police, but I had to take care of it physically. It's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yep. No, I fully understand. And for the young men that do face bullies, you do have to stand up to them even if you lose. Here's why. Because as you do, it becomes a cost benefit for those bullies. Man, that guy's just a pain in the ass. And sure, we kick his ass, but he keeps coming back for an ass kick, and
Yeah.
my hand is hurting. Let's just make friends.
Yeah.
I can't stand all this damage to my fist from his nose anymore. So let's just stop. And you can get respect that way too, just not quitting.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about masculinity in history, guys. Here's one of the issues that faces. We've been trained to act and react emotionally. Masculinity throughout history for human beings, it is in a sense, it's control, controlled violence, controlled thought, controlled emotion. It is controlled feelings. When the shit gets hairy, you grit your teeth, take a breath. If you're injured, you rub some dirt on it, you stand back up and you go do what has to be done.
Yeah.
Right? That's not happening. No, we express our feelings and we say, well, to be a man, we have to show our vulnerability. Bullshit. Vulnerability is weakness, and you don't show that except to your dearest friends and mentors. That's how it's done
I agree.
in the circles, you see. It is not done another way. You never show vulnerability to your woman. You can show feelings. We're not telling you to not have feelings.
Right.
Feelings come, feelings go. I don't feel like working out today. Some of my best damn workouts has been when I didn't feel that. Okay.
Yeah.
Feelings are physical properties within your body. Maybe you had a bad mood though. Okay. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's an injury. But if you just have a feeling, dude, masculine men don't give a shit about that.
Exactly.
They look at the objective reality around them and take it a task at a time, even if it's difficult. That right there is extremely attractive to the feminine. That ability in just about any circumstance, and that ability allows you to take up space in a social environment without being domineering. And a lot
Right.
of guys try to emulate that. You can see it with some good actors can do this. And we talk
Yeah.
how they communicate, how they pace their communication, but it comes through as almost a vibe, and you don't have to be domineering at all to project that masculine presence that's so powerful and so needed. And here's the thing: if you learn it and it becomes a part of your identity, which it will, you have everything in you, all of you do. As you make it mature, it will become irresistible to those around you, including men and women. Men will want to follow, and women, of course, they'll want to take you for their own.
Right.
That's
Well, I know
kind of my diatribe on masculinity.
my daughter, she's 15, and she's usually here, but she's at a friend's. She talks about it's difficult for her. Of course, she's around us and her brothers, and she has a hard time finding a boyfriend that is what we're talking about, because so many of them are raised by their mothers or the father's in the home, but he's not leading. So they're really she has a hard time finding a masculine boy, in this case, 15, 16 years old. They all start out pretty fair, she said, but then after about 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, they'll call her up crying, or I can't live without you, or maybe threaten to kill themselves, and all that. It's like, of course, that just turns her off.
They're
But
young.
yet these guys are taught, like what you said, I see it on Facebook quite a bit. Well, you need to be vulnerable. And these young guys are taught that they need to be vulnerable, to share their feelings with their woman. And these things turn girls off. I mean, I see it with my daughter, and that's just, you can't do that. They don't
The
understand.
popular culture. Do you guys know the history behind the changing of the language? This is real popular with Marxism. George Orwell wrote a book on it in 1984, where they changed the language on purpose.
No, I'm
Language
not
is
familiar with that.
language is super important. I mean, language. If language can create thought, thought creates language, or can corrupt language.
Right.
Language corrupts thought. Thought can create corrupt language. Anyway, hence the power of propaganda. But back to vulnerability. I have a video on my site where I did the research. Vulnerability meant weakness. It meant the ability, a weakness in armor, a failing, all of those things. And then in 2016, out of I want to say Stanford, one of the graduate students later to become a PhD, wrote an article about a vulnerability and a man's ability to express it and why it was so important that they did. And out of that grew this whole adoption with the American Psychological Association with vulnerability. It's changed now. They're saying vulnerability, if you look now across different websites, vulnerability is ability to express emotion. That's not what it is. They've
Yeah.
changed the language in popular culture. I actually feel like it's done on purpose. They do a lot of language changes, and we just happen to be caught up in it, and it's gained such popularity. It's part of feminism phase 3, and that's to weaken men, is to change the
Right.
they don't understand and that they're dumbed down. A bunch of doublespeak. Vulnerability is not what you should be. You should build your strength. They also down talk stoicism, and they say stoicism is, suppressing your emotions, and that's unhealthy. Yeah, suppressing emotions can be. It can be very unhealthy, but that's not what stoicism is. It's regulating them.
Right. Controlling them.
You regulate when you feel them. There are times when you can't just sit there and then freeze because you want to stop scream in fear or crying. No, you have to be a man, because I'll tell you this. Let me tell you a story. So last year, my wife was in a horrible auto accident. Married 29 years at the time. Car was thrown into her and broke her neck. She's paralyzed from the neck down. And I think I've cried 3 times in my life in public. Once at the loss of a family member. That was Odin, my father. And then my dog. And then they're in the hospital. And very important women were there in my life. When they saw tears come down my face, including my wife, who was sitting there with tubes in her throat, they panicked. When they saw me start to cry, they panicked.
Yeah.
It took me about 15 seconds to realize this emotion is not helping. Shut it down, get positive, do what needs to be done.
They look to you for strength.
That's correct. Now, that's not to say that weeks later, in the privacy
Right.
home in the dead of night, I didn't let some of that out. I won't say whether I did or I didn't, but that's regulated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I tell people too. It's not about stuffing it down forever. It's about expressing it in the right time, in the right place. I recommend people go to their best friend or their mentor.
That's
this thing. Yeah. That's what you have to do, because your woman looks to you for strength, because she goes through these emotional storms. You've been married 29 years, so I'm sure you've been with a woman during her menstrual cycle. I've had them tell me crazy stuff and then turn around in 2 seconds and say, you know how I am on my days. Don't pay any attention to me. They realize they cannot, so they don't need a man who's going to be emotional. And I have been emotional around women, and that does not work, like you found out, and that does not work. They just don't feel safe with an emotional man like that. Like some of the movies want to portray. And women will even say, I want a guy who expresses himself with me, who's more in touch with his emotion. Until they get one. Yeah.
She wants a man that can express control over himself.
Yeah.
That is masculinity, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys got any questions?
No, I'm just really tired.
About to fall asleep over there?
Yeah, I was sitting here. Brado tapped me because I was falling asleep. But yeah.
Where are we at on time?
About 50 minutes.
50 minutes?
48.
48? All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. I got a meeting to go to at 7. So, and I tell you what, it was great. I'm glad you came. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Sure. I just sent in the private chat quite a few links for you if you wanted to post them. You can sign up for my email list. I don't send any newsletters or anything like that, but I do have some lectures that are coming up, and I'll just go ahead and run it through. You can find me at becomedurable.com. And you can also find me on Gumroad. YouTube channel is RP Thor, and I'm rp.thor on Instagram. Some of the lectures that I give are pretty interesting. They're right along lines of masculinity. And we just barely touched a little bit on emotional regulation. I call it emotional durability. So we do some teaching there as well. I'm also going to be speaking at Donovan Sharp's conference on masculine.
How are you?
Yes, excellence here in Miami coming in May at 18th
Oh,
through the 2nd. So
that's
that should
great.
be good. Yeah, I think that'll be really good. So that's just some of the things that I've been doing, and I'd appreciate you guys that sign up. You get discounts on some of my consulting. I'm available for consulting. I started out. This is interesting. I started out with fitness, older man's fitness, because I'm 59 and I stay in pretty good shape. And it's kind of morphed into, believe it or not, long-term relationship consulting.
Yeah.
So there's a real need for it too, because men and women are struggling today, and I think they're struggling with masculinity and femininity is really the,
Yeah.
and they're missing a huge component of life that fulfills us.
You also have the dragon ship where people get together, and I think that's a good. For
Yeah,
people.
that's a concept that just came about last year. And what it is it's a mastermind, kind of a mastermind webinar workshop rolled into one, where a couple dozen guys, although it's open, it's been by invite only, and but we're going to start advertising it like this, where it's a monthly membership. You come in for 3 hours, and the members will give brief lectures on topics such as this, topics that are related to red pill knowledge. It can even be financial knowledge. We have several multimillionaires in the group that have spoken on money and thoughts about money, and it's really interesting because it's not just an entertainment meeting. Everybody gets an interaction. So some guys are a little uncomfortable with it because they're not used to being social. But this is a really good place to do it because they're all men and they understand they've all been there.
Yeah, I
And
joined in last time. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and I think the young men need that because they don't have the opportunity like I had when I was young. When I was young, we were around older men, and then when we got in our teens, a lot of us young men were together, and I think they're lacking that today. So I think it's a good thing for men.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And we're growing that. It's pretty reasonable. It's $47 a month for a 3-hour meeting of immense value to anybody that wants to increase, their masculinity, their ability to make money, make solid decisions, and kind of shortcut learning by experience and trial and error. You can
Yeah,
certainly do well by living from men that have been there and have made the mistakes. Here's the beauty. You don't have to.
right.
Forum is open, and you can find that on becomedurable.com. It's Thor's Dragon Ship Mastermind monthly.
Great. Yeah, that reminds me of this. I always got these sayings pop as iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens his fellow man.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works when you get in a group like at a mastermind, in case any of you haven't ever heard of that. Very important. So, all right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. And once again, it was great. Thanks for joining us. It was very informative. And tomorrow night, you have a show, and I'm going to be a guest on your show.
Yeah, it's going to be you and Wraith Dean Tor, and we are going to talk about modern women. Are they getting long in the tooth?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that meant until you had to explain that to me. I know I've heard it, but I couldn't remember what. That's an old saying. There.
A very old saying, because are they wearing on us? Are they getting old? Is it getting old hearing about modern women or what?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Saturday.
All right. Tomorrow, Sunday.